Okay, it says factor completely. It's negative 7x to the 6th minus 14x to the 5th plus 336x to the 4th. That's a little scary looking at first, but the first thing we should always do when we're factoring is to look for the greatest common factor. And we can tell here that, well, 7 goes into the first two terms, easy enough. So does 7 go into 336? Well, it turns out 7 goes into 336 evenly, goes in 48 times. So 7 is a factor common to all three terms. So I can factor out a 7. And also x to the 6th here, x to the 5th here, x to the 4th. X to the 4th is common. Each of these terms has at least x to the 4th. So the GCF is 7x to the 4th. Now I'm also going to factor out a negative because I'd like the leading coefficient inside the parentheses to be a positive leading coefficient. And I can accomplish that by factoring out a negative along with the GCF. So we take a negative 7x to the 4th and we're going to factor it out of the first term. And when we do that, or think of it as taking negative 7x to the 4th and dividing it into this, and that leaves us with positive x squared. Since we factored out a negative, this sign is going to change from subtraction to addition. Take the 7x to the 4th, divide it into the middle term, or you're going to get 2x. This sign is going to change from plus to minus because we factored out the negative. And 7x to the 4th divided into this is going to give us 48. Right? And just as a sanity check, you can distribute the GCF back through to make sure you get what you started with. And we negative 7x to the 4th times x squared gives us this. And then the negative 7x to the 4th times a positive 2x. Negative 7 times positive 2 is negative 14. X to the 4th times x is x to the 5th. And negative 7 times a negative 48 is a positive 336 x to the 4th. So you can do that just mentally, if not actually writing it down, to make sure that you factored out the GCF correctly. Alright, we're not finished yet, because remember it says to factor completely. So far we've factored the GCF out, but now we want to see if we can factor this trinomial as a binomial times a binomial. So to factor any trinomial as a binomial times a binomial, see, we got a positive x squared, which is very nice. That's why we factored out the negative. So we want to put an x here and an x here because we know that x times x has to give us x squared. Then we go to the last term. Notice it's a negative 48. Well, we know for sure that this has got to be plus and this has got to be minus. And the reason we know that is because this number times this number has to be a negative 48. Well, the only way to multiply two numbers together and end up with a negative is for the signs to be different. So we know one's plus and one's minus. Now we want two numbers that multiply together to give us a negative 48, but add together to give us a positive 2. Well, we could put 6 and 8 if we were in a hurry and not thinking carefully enough, because a positive 6 times a negative 8 would give us a negative 48, and that's good news. But then when we add these two together, we don't get a positive 2x, and that's what we need. When we add these two together, we would get a negative 2. So in order to fix that problem, we need to put the 8 here and the 6 here. We still get a positive 8 times a negative 6 is a negative 48. Still get that. But when we add these two together, we get a positive 2. So you have to be very careful with your signs when you're factoring. But this is the final answer then.